Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Glowy Glowy podcast with Kyle and Chris. And we're back again, as it says in the description. Please see previous podcast. It's getting to the point where it, if you've seen one United game this season, you've seen them all. It was another abject display. No heart, no spirit, no desire. Just a United team of players who've just completely given up. It was another absolutely shambolic display, and you got to really feel sorry for the 3,000 United fans who travelled to Goodison Park. So what was your thoughts on it, Chris?
Yeah, it was really, really poor again, Kyle. Like I say, it sounded a bit like a broken record now. I've been saying this all the time these days. Just seems like every week is the same, and I've got the same gripes. Players not looking like they've got any heart. The play being too slow, too sloppy. Balls played behind men when we're on the attack, stuff like that. Yeah, just another really, really poor performance. Never looked like scoring at all. Yeah, more of the same, unfortunately. Although it probably arguably worse, at least in more recent weeks. At least we got a goal or two, whereas we didn't look like scoring in a million years on Saturday. So yeah, very, very hard to watch once again.
Yeah, another own goal from Harry Maguire. Um, very very confused about the selection of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I know Diogo Dalot's not perfect, but he lows off even more in the opposition's half than Wan-Bissaka, and we see another example of that towards the end where Wan-Bissaka had a chance, probably our best chance of the whole game, and he was so awkward, isn't he? Trying to get the ball out of the air to have a shot. And by the time he got it down, two Everton players were upon him to make the block. But there's very, very few people who played well. Rashford was very unhappy about being subbed off, but I'm not sure what complaints he can have. Um, he was given an opportunity on both wings, and he didn't really do much for me. And to be honest, we often do player ratings on this show, and it's very, very easy for me on this occasion. Everybody gets a naught except the goalkeeper, who I would give a 7 to. I think he made a brilliant save to prevent another deflected effort that nearly looped over him. Um, and there's nothing he could do about the goal. We'll get on to his interview in a second. But yeah, they were all absolutely shocking. You would struggle to find 10 players in that squad, huge squad that it is, that are actually fully committed anymore. They've all just, most of them have just checked out. And one of the ones you can never accuse of checking out is Fred, and he had to come off for someone who who's definitely leaving in the summer, Paul Pogba. So that was a real shame. It just shows the state that we're in at the moment. But we're disappointed when Fred has to come off for Pogba, who has three times the amount of ability as Fred. But that just kind of summarizes the crap that we're watching right now.
Pretty much, yeah, that's exactly it. As I said, in podcasts in recent weeks, I can understand, if our players aren't kind of, at the absolute top level ability wise. Although you would say that Manchester United, we have the resources they should all be, but they are, and that's the worst thing about this is that we have guys who have a lot of ability. Paul Pogba is the prime example, and they're not putting it in, or they're not using that ability, and that's the most frustrating thing. Of any Manchester United team, the absolute minimum that you expect of any professional football player really is give 100% effort. Give it your best. At all times, and some players will have more quality, and usually the thing is the guy with the more quality comes out on top because both guys are giving 100% effort. One's got more ability than the other, he wins. But we're not giving the effort, and that is the absolute minimum. And that right now, for reasons, probably 100 reasons that we could talk about, doesn't seem to be happening. So you're totally right in what you're saying, Kyle.
Yeah, another player who I wouldn't accuse of lacking effort would be Tellez, but his shortcomings were there for all to see when he took that corner that couldn't beat the first man, right along the ground, and the Everton defender at the front post was easily able to just knock it away. He puts in the odd good delivery into the box, but quite often his quality is lacking. But certainly he has to be preferred to Luke Shaw at the moment, because Luke Shaw is another person whose attitude is very very questionable. Although he might be out for the rest of the season now because um, complications to do with his leg break from 2015. Screws hadn't been removed and being replaced or something. Yeah, very strange. Um, Yeah, and unfortunately, even the players, the very few players that I'd want to keep at the club, like I've stated previously, but even the players I do want to keep, like Sancho, Fernandez, Ronaldo, Varane wasn't playing, and they're not producing it at the minute either. It's just so disjointed. I've seen a stat that the Everton team ran 10 kilometers more than United, and that really just highlights the complete lack of effort. Um, and David De Gea appeared to show his frustration with his teammates after the game. He told BT, "We don't score. We don't even create proper chances to score. I don't know what to say, to be honest. We're not good enough, that's for sure. It's going to be very difficult now to be in the top four." He said, "It's a disgrace from us. We should be winning this game." So I would say he could have said a lot more. He could have went in a bit deeper on his teammates there, but I think he's holding back a wee bit. But you can clearly see how frustrated that he is, and the fans will obviously appreciate him being really honest there in his interview with BT.
Yeah, and you can understand it, and I guess like I said, we have a lot of ability in the squad, and you could say that some of the players with more ability, could be coming out and complaining about other players maybe who aren't as good as they are. But actually, David De Gea is probably the one player right now that is in a position to cast a stone at somebody, because he's got a lot of ability, and he's putting in the effort, and it's showing in his performances. Like you said, he's the only one who you would give a half decent score to. You give him a 7, because he is actually in a position to say that he's doing everything that he can possibly do to win games. He's putting the effort in. He's a high level of performances, and he's watching other guys who he's relying on to go win the games, because he's a goalkeeper. He can't win the games on his own, and they're not producing. And again, he's probably frustrated too, Kyle, because he's looking and seeing players with ability, and they're just not doing it. And yes, okay, you can get frustrated with players who you think don't have ability, and some people would say maybe that's part of what Ronaldo's maybe frustrated with. But you have to give guys kind of kudos for giving 100%. And I think that that's what David has probably the most cheesed off about, is to see guys like Fernandez, like Ronaldo, like Pogba, who he knows can win football games, and he's going, I can understand it. You have the ability, guys. How come it's not happening? Just don't understand it. And I think that's probably why he's frustrated, like we are as fans.
Yeah, he was almost the voice of the fans there at the weekend. Before we continue, please subscribe to the podcast, give us a wee like in the video, and comment your thoughts down below. I'm sure you're all very passionate at the moment, or maybe you've just, but like us, it's turned to apathy really. These defeats probably don't even hurt anymore. We've checked out. The players have checked out. The fans have checked out. We just want the season to end. Because there's no way that we're getting into top four. Arsenal have collapsed just like us, and it seems like Spurs are going to take advantage. Um, and that's one of the talking points, is that they appointed a world class permanent manager who was available to us in the autumn, and we went for an interim manager who had no authority from the start. It hasn't worked. He hasn't really got more of a tune out of the players than Solskjaer. Um, the board briefed the press that Conte was too confrontational and to become United manager. Um, Absolute nonsense. Do you think we missed a trick by not getting him back in October?
I think we did. I think we absolutely did. I don't think there's any two ways about that. I mean, you have to ask yourself, what was the aim of getting the interim manager? You know, like you said, Kyle, uh, Ranić, for rightly or wrongly, maybe because the problems aren't down to the manager, I don't know. He's getting no more of a tune out of the players than Solskjaer did, which means that he has done officially the same job. He's done no better. So, I asked myself, what were the people making decisions in Manchester United actually looking for when they got an interim? Did they think that Solskjaer was the problem, and as soon as they got anybody else in, then all of a sudden the players would start playing, it would all come good and be enough to get over the line. And then, that would give them time to get, a big name that would appease the fans in the summer. I mean, is that what it was? I don't know. But Conte being confrontational, for me, that's an absolute that's a non-entity of an argument. I mean, okay, if someone is completely impossible to work with, I understand why I would say, look, we don't want to involve this person. They are pretty toxic. But Conte, I can't imagine is like that. He's a very good manager. He wins trophies, and that's what we tried to do with Mourinho, was get someone in who would guarantee us trophies. It didn't happen. So, I don't see why they would have an issue with getting a manager in who would win trophies. Which tells me the usual story we've been battering on about for a long time is that the people making decisions at Manchester United want to make all the decisions on their own, and they just want somebody who will just coach the players and somehow get a tune out of them, even though it seems impossible to do, and they don't want any back chat at all. That's what I read from saying he's too confrontational, and that purely describes the problem at Manchester United right now. And until that changes, it doesn't look too good.
Well, I just want to be clear and say I'm not blaming Ralph Ranić for the current feelings. In terms of this hideous season, I would put 80% of the blame on the players, 10% on Solskjaer, and 10% on Ranić. For me, these players their egos are out of control. They're narcissistic. I think the world owes them a favor. And even though these reports coming out that they're not happy, they were underwhelmed by Ranić. Some of them are underwhelmed by Eric Ten Hag. I mean, in what other industry do you get to choose your boss? I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. And now we've seen some kickback now against the players and against the owners, of course, which are going to come on to now. So a cardboard sign was strapped to a lamppost outside Carrington on Sunday, which read, "Embarrassing shitbags, not fit to wear the shirt, get out of our club." Very, very strong statement. But you can understand the fans' frustration who put that there. Um, my hope is that the players read that and they get the feel of the anger from the supporters. Um, and now we've seen that there's going to be a protest organised for the Norwich game at home on Saturday. There's going to be a march to the ground, and the fans are going to stay. Well, this is organised by the group of fans known as the 1958, and they're going to stay out of the ground until the 17th minute, and that's to do with the fact that the Glazers have been at the club for 17 years. I totally agree with the sentiments. I totally agree with protesting, but their method of protest is something that I would disagree with. I think if we're going to boycott the ground, we should either do either go to the game from the start and then leave after 17 minutes, or boycott the game entirely, because even though you're protesting, Joe Glazer over in Miami, Florida, just won't care because you're not hitting him in the pocket. You've already paid him for your season tickets, and the fans who don't have season tickets that will be buying tickets anyway if they're going in after 17 minutes. So I agree with the idea of protesting, of course, but I would be more pragmatic about it, and I would prefer to see a big empty stadium on the weekend in front of the world's cameras.
Yeah, I think what you raised very important points. I mean, from my perspective, I feel that what you're saying is 100% right. I think I would probably prefer to see a walkout or to see the guys, to see the fans not actually turn up for the game at all. I mean, my feeling is that something needs to give, and I really feel like fans need to come together. I mean, we've seen it in the past where we had the protest for the Liverpool game. The game was called off. We make a couple of signings and people start to quiet down again as if things have changed. I think we all should know by now nothing has changed, and we're hoping once again, like we were before, that in the summer something will change. And the fact is, 100%, the problems go beyond the pitch. They go beyond the players. They go beyond the manager. They seem to be widespread throughout the club from the top right to the bottom. And that means that the way of doing things needs to change. I personally have absolutely no issue with the Glazers for who they are. I have no issue at all. It doesn't really matter to me who owns the club. It's all about how the club is run by the people who own it. And that's the problem. It's not that I necessarily think the Glazers themselves need to go, but the way they run things has to change. And we as fans need to do something about that. And you're right, Kyle. There's always, people can kind of argue and disagree and talk about, the method of making things change. But regardless, I think we all agree something needs to change. And I think now is the time for fans to be more collective, less kind of disparate, less kind of disjointed, and say, can we come together and find a way well, we can make things happen. We can actually get things to change because they have to change at this point.
Yeah, like you say there, what happens is when we're in dire straits like we are at the moment, the majority of the fan base are on board with organising protests and rallies. But what do you say? Everton Hag would probably come in, we'll make a few signs in the summer, and everybody, it'll all quieten down again. And back to just the minority taking charge of the protests again. Um, and when things go badly again, then the majority will be back on board. And that there just doesn't work. It needs to be consistent. I'm all for peaceful protesting, and I don't agree with violence. Um,
100%, absolutely. No, it has to be peaceful, has to be legal. That's, I mean, yeah, I should have said that. That should really go without saying, to be honest. Yeah,
yeah,
has to be peaceful, has to be legal, 100%.
absolutely. But yeah, um, if I was going to the game on Saturday, yeah, I would 100% join in with the protest. But if I was the organizer, I would rather go in from the first minute and then stage a walkout after 17 minutes, or else not go to the game altogether. I know it's an incredible sacrifice because for many people, going to watch United every Saturday is their life, and it's really hard to give up even just one game. But it's for it would be for the greater good, and that's my opinion anyway. That's what I would like to. That's the method of protest that I would like to see.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, it has happened in the history of Manchester United before when the fans weren't happy with how the club was being run. You know, pretty much same situation. And, you know, protests included boycotts where people just didn't go to the games. You know, back then we didn't have same TV coverage and online and all that stuff. So, you know, going to the game was really your only way to engage with the club. And the fans just didn't show up because they weren't happy with how things were being done. And they did that for a while, and then things changed because you have to, because you know that's what anybody who's making any revenue at the club relies on: fan engaging with the club, whether that be through social media, whether it be by watching the games on TV, you know, with your subscriptions, whatever it is, or whether it be actually going to the games, or all of the above. And if fans, you know, want to hit the Glazers, want to hit the people who we feel aren't running the club right, where it hurts, we have to find ways to disengage in the short term. Absolutely not for the long term, in the short term, and that's my feeling on how things how we can maybe get things to change.
Yeah, and we saw after the Super League debacle, the fans managed to get a game postponed. So it shows what can be done if if everybody comes together. But yeah, we obviously we all agree that the Glazers are not they're not good owners for Manchester United. Um, you say you don't necessarily want them to leave; you just want them to change. But some people come back to that and say a leopard doesn't change his spots. Um,
And I would have no argument with that at all. Yep, absolutely, absolutely, that's fair.
but we all agree that the Glazers are bad owners. Um, their 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 priority is the bottom line on that football. And we've seen how well Manchester City and Liverpool are doing right now because they've got owners who prioritise football. And now we've seen some slight changes with them starting to, rather than Ed Woodward calling all the shots, they've now appointed a board of directors that include John Murda and Darren Fletcher, and apparently somebody else is going to come in, and Ranick is going to be an advisor who works 6 days a month. Um, and of course, it seems like they're going to be being progressive in terms of their selection of manager, going for something completely different rather than just going for Pochettino, the obvious choice, who they've actually been a fan of for many years, who's Premier League proven. They're actually going to go for an up and coming manager in Holland, and take the gamble on him. Yeah, and it shows that at least something different is happening. But reports have been coming out this week that Ten Hag will not sign the contract until he's given assurances that he will have not necessarily full control, but at least a substantial say on ingoings, outgoings, and player contracts. And you can't blame him for making that demand because that's ultimately what's led to managers more experienced than him, failing at United. So he knows, like, that United has become a bit of a graveyard for managers. I mean, you could argue that it always has been because, I mean, only two managers have won the league at United since the Second World War, and the other two became before the First World War. So 18 out of the 20 titles have been two men. Okay, other managers have won cups, but I mean, success is defined by winning leagues and Champions Leagues at United. So most managers fail. So he just wants the conditions to be perfect for him to allow him to succeed, and you can fully understand why that's the case.
100%. And the thing about it is, you know, talking about managers, and how we've done in the past. I mean, I would argue that up until kind of the Ferguson era, we didn't have never had the financial might that we had during that era. During that era, the Edwards owned the club, and they were well, they owned it previously to that, they owned it for quite a while, obviously, but they were able to find that balance between commercial success and success on the pitch, and allowing the two to feed each other, where success on the pitch fed the commercial side was able to be pumped back in to feed success on the pitch. So yes, while we could say that we expect most managers to fail, I would argue that in the past that might have been fair, but since the Ferguson era and how strong we are financially, I feel we don't really have any excuses anymore to fail. We have the resources to go and buy the best players, buy the best manager. If you buy the best players and you have a manager who's able to pick good players, knows who he wants, and we're able to go and get them, you're going to win things. You just watch, like you said, Kyle. You watch Liverpool, you watch Man City. What have they done? Those managers came in, cleared out the previous regime, had a vision. The club allowed them to implement that vision. Whatever they asked for, generally they were given. Not saying they got every player they wanted, but they generally got what they needed, and that's why they're successful. And I don't see any difference between Manchester United's ability to do that and Liverpool or Man City's. I don't see it. So I feel the club has zero excuses unless they just don't want to win things that much. And that's what I see. I see a club who wants to get top four. And if even gone back to what you said, there's a fair point about Ten Hag. But let's be honest, Ten Hag isn't as young as people think he is. It's just because he's not that well known. I think he's actually older than Pochettino, in fact, who we think has been around the block. So Ten Hag's he's not a young up and coming manager. He's a manager who is not that young but hasn't had a glittering high profile career, and this is his kind of his big break. But the thing about it is too, you could argue that Solskjaer, rightly or wrongly, was a young up and coming manager, similar situation. Okay, didn't have the pedigree, and I'm nearly more worried in some ways that what we're doing is we're doing the same old again. We're picking somebody who's not Conte, not Mourinho, isn't proven, somebody that the club thinks they can kind of bully a little bit, happy and feel almost privileged to have the job. But fair play to Ten Hag that he's not letting that happen. So I would nearly be fearful that we're actually not changing by picking Ten Hag. We're actually going more the same. Somebody who's up and coming, they'll be happy to take the job. We'll give them enough money, and they'll keep the fans happy. And they also know that that's who the fans want. But like you said, Ten Hag himself seems to be the person who's not willing to let that happen, and that impresses me, and I like that. And hopefully he's able to get his way and get these reassurances, and hopefully they follow through with them, and we actually do start to want to become a football club again.
Yeah, his career's on the line here, and some of his Dutch colleagues have told him to run a mile. Manchester United is a commercial club, not a football club, so you can see why he wants certain assurances before he takes a job, because he wants to be, and it's not exactly a radical demand. He just wants to be able to do his job properly, as anyone would. It's not, he's not being unrealistic with the demands that he's making. They're pretty fair. So hopefully they do give in to his demands, and he becomes manager. Because how embarrassing would it be if he turned us down and went to like RB Leipzig or something? Where do United go from there? That would be an absolute humiliation.
Exactly, and that is what they're running the risk of. It's funny because you talk about sometimes top footballers don't want to come to clubs that are outside the Champions League because they want to be successful. They might look at a club who they think won't succeed and they won't want to come. But we're running the risk of becoming a club that managers don't want to come to. Ambitious managers don't want to come to because they know they're not going to succeed, and that is an even more damning indictment of where things are at. And like I said, I don't think we've any excuses for that anymore. I understand when you go to a club doesn't have the same financial revenue as Manchester United. You know you're going to work on a limited budget. You know you're not going to be able to buy all the best players in every position that you might, as a manager, want in the ideal world. And that's why maybe some top level managers might turn some of the smaller clubs down. But we're not one of those clubs. We have the finances. If we're not doing that, that means there's other reasons why these things aren't happening. I think we all know that, and that's the issue. We run the risk of getting to the point where we can't even attract top level managers. And like you said, Kai, where do we go from there? Something has to change. It really does.
Yeah, they kind of have to give in to his demands, really, to kind
Yeah.
of see a face. So
I completely agree. I think it's the best for everybody if they do, and they just give the guy a little bit of control. Let it. If he gives you a list of players he wants, try and go out and get his number one, number two target. Don't say no. We've already decided who we're buying. That's who you're getting. No, that's not going to work. Give the guy what he wants. Have a if he's showing progress, over a couple of years, give him long term. Say, okay, we understand from a football perspective. There's a massive clear out. The team's unbalanced. As Rannick said, too many technical players. We understand you need to get rid of a few of those. You need to get some other players in. That's going to take time. We'll help you do that, and we'll accept things aren't going to be amazing in the short term. And that's what they're going to have to do. So yeah, I hope they actually decide to follow through with it.
well, even if they do come to an agreement and they sign a contract, we're not going to hear anything apparently until after the Dutch Cup final on Easter Sunday, and they're playing their title rivals PSV in that final. So that's a huge game for Ajax. So they don't want, apparently, according to David Ornstein, a very reliable journalist, nothing's going to be made official until after that game has taken place.
It's fair enough.
Um, so in the meantime, though, we will be playing Norwich, and that's just 3 days before we get beat 6-0 at Anfield. Um, Now, rather than continually selecting the same players who are letting us down, especially the players who are leaving in the summer, they shouldn't play anymore because they're just going to be protecting themselves from getting injured. Because I mean, nobody's going to if they're out of contract, nobody's going to sign them if they're injured. They miss out on a huge signing on fee. So no point in playing people who are in that position. What they should do now that I mean top four looks very very unlikely to say the least. Um, Hannibal Mabry, let's give that guy his debut, and he's hugely talented. Everyone wants to see him on the pitch. He was on the bench at the weekend. I know he's probably going to make his debut at some point between now and the end of the season, but I would go sooner rather than later. And he's not, even though he's young, I mean, he's not slight in any way. He's a big lad. So it's not as if he doesn't have the physicality to play in the Premier League. So let's just give him a start, get a look at him. Let's give the fans something to be excited about between now and the end of the season because let's face it, there's not much else.
No, I think you're not far wrong. We have a look at how well young Alanga's done this season. There's absolutely no reason why we can't give some young, hungry players a chance. Like you said, Kai, we're talking about the problem being about lack of effort. Well, you'd hope you're going to get the full effort from the young lads. They've got something to prove. They want to be there. They want to show what they can do. So yeah, I fully agree with you. I don't see any reason to not start bringing more of the young lads through. Give a couple of guys their debuts. Yeah, I mean, it can't do any worse than what we're doing now. We're losing games, we're drawing games, we should be winning. So it can't get much worse. May as well take a chance on some of the younger guys. Don't see any reason why not. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Another point which I forgot to mention was yet again the players strolled off the pitch at the end and didn't show any appreciation to the travelling United fans. Um, According to accounts from people who were among those United fans, Sancho showed his appreciation, but not many other people just went straight down the tunnel. Again, that just shows a real attitude problem. Um, Players living in their own bubble, not at least showing their applause to fans who paid their hard-earned money to come and watch them and watch a pretty shambolic display. Um, but we did see some frustration from Ronaldo as we've had many times this season. Um, the United players on the way off were taking some abuse from Everton supporters, and an Everton supporter must have dropped his phone on the ground, and Ronaldo picked it up and smashed it against the ground. And Ronaldo has apologised for that now and invited that Everton supporter to come to Old Trafford as his guest. Can't imagine an Everton fan would be keen to take up that offer, but maybe he will if it's for free. But yeah, it's not good. United players not showing their appreciation to away fans or even at Old Trafford. But Ronaldo again showing his frustration, in not such a good way. Um, I'm I'm hoping now that Ronaldo will stay another season, even if he's not first choice next season, because he won't want his illustrious United career to end on this kind of symbolic season. It's not going to be what he's remembered for, but it's not the way you want to end. I'm sure his dream way of ending his United career is to win a trophy and play a huge role in that. Maybe that'll be his motivation to continue on one more season. So this is not how he's going to end his glorious United career.
No, you'd hope not. I mean, I personally like you, Kyle. I know people say, "Oh, was Ronaldo a good signing for United and all these things." You know, for me, I don't think there's any real question. Ronaldo is an out and out winner. You give the guy good service, he's going to score goals. I don't care what anybody says. That's just a fact. So I personally think I would like to see him stay. And as you said, I hope that maybe he has that motivation that we don't want to end on this kind of low note. He's got the ability, and maybe with a new coach and I hope maybe things change, a better system, a bit more balance in the team next season. Perhaps he can actually be a part of something that at least fighting for trophies. Something that's gonna give him something kind of worth playing for. So yeah, I would agree. His behavior at times isn't great. What he did with that Everton fans phone isn't great, but that he's a winner. The guy doesn't like losing. Yeah, we need that type of spirit. Eric Cantona, the picture right behind me. One of my absolute heroes. Didn't always behave perfectly, but he was a winner. There was no two ways, and Ronaldo's a bit like that as well. So I think you can, as a fan, yeah, it's not right to do those things, and I'm not remotely condoning it. But I guess at least shows he's got that winning attitude, and we need more of that. So yeah, I hope he stays. And yeah, gives it his all for another season, and yeah, maybe helps us to do at least fight for something. I find it hard to say to win a trophy. I just that seems so far away. I don't think I can say it. It just doesn't. But yeah, who knows?
And if we do win a trophy next season, it'll be something like the FA Cup or the League Cup. It won't be anything else other than that, really, or the Europa Conference League. Sorry, we might win that.
Sorry,
um,
I didn't mean to roll my eyes there.
and Ronaldo smashing the phone is pretty tame in comparison to what Eric Cantona did in
Exactly.
1995.
Exactly. And again, by no way condoning what Cantona did or what Ronaldo did. But yeah, absolutely.
And Eric, you can't go around doing things like that, son.
Yeah, I think that was the story, wasn't it? He gave somebody else more of a rollicking that day than Cantona got. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's getting egg cress sandwiches thrown at them. Cups of tea were flying at Lee Sharp and Ryan Giggs and so on. But Cantona just got away. Can't do things like that, Eric.
You can't do that after he literally
After
kung fu kicked somebody in the crowd, flipping heck, you think about it, but that's Cantona. Yeah, I would have Cantona back in the morning, to be honest.
yeah, everybody was treated differently under Ferguson. He knew how to manage. He knew he couldn't manage everyone the same way.
No.
And Rooney often talks about it the way at half time, if Nani and Ronaldo were dribbling too much and giving the ball away, he wouldn't go after them too because they would start to cry. So he always come for Rooney at half time and get stuck in them because he knew he'd get a reaction out of him. But it was kind of indirectly aimed at Nani and Ronaldo.
I just think you're trying to pull at my heartstrings now, Kyle. You're talking about the good old days whenever things were great, we used to win stuff and all.
I
Oh,
know.
I love it. Love
If the club decides by some miracle that they want to have a vision now and they want to build a football team that's capable of winning things, obviously it's going to have to be a 3 or 4 year plan. Um, some would argue that while Klopp and Guardiola are at their respective clubs, that we've no chance of winning the league anyway. But if we can build properly in the next 3 years and give Ten Hag a real chance to build a team in his image, by the time one of or both of Klopp and Guardiola walk away, we'll be ready to pounce. That is the ideal scenario.
100%. Klopp and Guardiola are absolutely top drawer coaches. But you know, if you have a look at Guardiola, for example, you look at the clubs, you look at what Guardiola's won, but you look at the clubs that he's been at. Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Man City. Being able to have whoever he wants. I find it hard to believe, and I'm not being disrespectful to Guardiola, and he's so out of this world good that another manager, given the exact same resources and exact same circumstances, can't pretty much replicate what he's done or be very close to it. So I don't think the club Manchester United being run the right way. The thing we couldn't be that far off these guys. They're not that good. They're not superhuman. That that it's impossible for anybody to catch them. It's not. It's impossible for anybody without the right resources and having the tools they've been given to replicate it, and that's the position we're in. But we get a top level coach with the right resources. I don't see why we can't catch them. I don't see why we can't.
Yeah, I would love to believe that we could win the title while Klopp and Guardiola are still at those clubs. But I would say one of them or both of them will be gone by the time we're in that position again. But once they do go, we want to be the ones to break the mold. I mean, Liverpool and City have been dominating now. We we want to be the club that breaks that mold and wins the league. But I mean, it's just light years away. Even thinking about that, next season, if Ten Hag does come in, it's going to be a long term project. We're going to hopefully get rid of as many of these players as possible. Bring in some of Ten Hag signings, some young players who've been out on loan. Um, and then slowly build for the future. And in the next transfer window in 2023, we do something similar. And then we're starting to build a team in Ten Hag's image. And hopefully he can pick up the odd cup on the way. And then in about 4 years' time, we're ready to win the league. That's the
Yeah.
dream scenario.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, and to be clear, when I was saying about winning the league or winning a trophy while they're there, I don't mean that I maybe took you up wrong in the sense of I believe that we, if the right circumstance, we could do it. But yeah, it's just going to take that long because we're so far away that they could just be gone by then. But yeah,
Yeah, we could have done it had we been managed correctly by the board. If
exactly.
football was a priority and not the commercial side of the club, and we actually had a proper structure in place, like players were being signed to fit the manager's philosophy and his vision, and not all these random players being signed over the manager's head, and yeah, and signing all these superstar names that are past it and well into the 30s. So if we hadn't had all this, the if without Ed Woodward and maybe someone instead of him in charge, um, like a proper football director, like Liverpool have Michael Edwards, and a proper structure in place, then we wouldn't have wasted the £1 billion. It's like it's to spend over £1 billion on a football team and fail is actually harder to do than succeed, but we managed it. So we'll wrap it up there for this week. And everyone give us a wee like in the video, subscribe to the podcast, and comment your thoughts down below. And when Ten Hag and his coaching team were announced, assuming that they will be, I'll be certain to be going live with a guest to discuss that. So see you again, Chris.
Thanks, Kai. Take care. Chat